Hi, how are you today? I hope you are fine. Today we are going to talk about poetry. Do you know poetry? What's the meaning of poetry? Poetry is a word that the poet draws a picture using words in order to express his emotions, feelings, thoughts, or opinions regarding a certain topic or life experience. So, poetry is a word that the poet. Who is the poet, Junior 5? The poet, he is the one who writes the poetry. The poet is the one who writes the poetry. The poet used these words that he wrote to draw in your imagination a picture about the word that he uses to express about his emotions, feelings, thoughts, or opinions. Okay, now let's see here a point of view in poetry. As we said before, who is the poet? The poet, he is the author of the poem. What's the meaning of the author? The one who writes the poem. What is the poem, Junior 5? The poem is a group of stanzas. Can you see this one? Can you see this word stanza? The stanza is a group of lines. Group of lines rearranged or arranged together to continue a stanza. Group of lines. Okay? The group of lines together on one line of the poem is called a line. This one, a word is did. This one is called a line. When it is said, this one is called a line. But here, as you see in this one, it's called stanza. What's the meaning of stanza? A group of lines. What about the stanzas? The group of stanzas is a poem. Again, so the stanza is a group of lines. The poem is a group of stanzas. Okay? Let's speak now about the poetic elements. What is the element? We will get out from the poem or the stanza two things: sound devices and figure of speech. First of all, we will speak about sound devices. What can we find in the sound devices? We will find number 1, alliteration. Number 2, rhyme scheme. Number 3, repetition. Again, what can we find in the sound devices? Alliteration, rhyme scheme, and repetition. Let's speak about the alliteration, the first thing. The alliteration is the repetition of the same letter. Remember this, the same letter at the beginning of a series of words. For example, the sea said, I'm glad. Here we have alliteration between the word see and the word said in letter S. Again, we have alliteration in the word see and the word said. Both of them start with the letter S, and we use it, this alliteration, we use it to create a musical effect through the poem. So what is the effect for the alliteration? It creates a musical effect through the poem. Again, alliteration, what's the meaning of alliteration? It is the repetition of the same letter at the beginning of the word. As we see here, see and said. And it gives us, or it's a create musical effect through the poem. Okay, now let's talk about the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme here, when the words sound alike. What's the meaning of sound alike? Have the same sound. But remember, this sound must be at the end of our line. And we will order this stanzas with the alphabetical order to represent the sound, to be able to see a pattern. Let's see an example here. Mr. Brown, the circus clown. Here we have, this is called a stanza, as we said before. This is what? A stanza. Why we call it a stanza? Because here we have a group of lines. As we said before, group of lines make stanza. Mr. Brown, the circus clown. We will look here at the last word in our line, clown. Let's see number 2. So it will order with A. Puts his clothes on upside down. Here, A. Why? Because here we have clown, clown. Both of them have the same sound, so I will write the same order, letter A. Let's see number 3. He wears his hat up on his toes. Clown, down, toes. No, there's a different sound here, so I will order it with letter B. And the socks and shoes up on his nose. Toes, nose. They have the same sound, but they are different with clown and down. So I will write B also. So what will be the rhyme scheme for our stanza? A, B, B. As you see here. Again, the rhyme scheme, the words sound alike. We will look at the end of our line, the last word in our line, and we will order them with the alphabetical order. The same sound will take the same letter, like clown, down. We have the same sound, so the same letter. Here we have toes, nose, both of them with the same sound, so they will take the same letter. At the end, we will write rhyme scheme A, B, B. Okay, what is the rhyme scheme gives us? Also, it gives us a musical effect to the poem. Okay? Okay, and now let's go to the last part in our sound devices. We have here, as you see here, we have a stanza, another one to do it together. Today I had a rotten day. As we said before, the first line always will take letter A in the alphabetical order in the rhyme scheme. As I was coming in from play, they play. So they will take the same order or the same sound. So A. I accidentally stopped by twos. They play twos. So twos is different. It will take another letter. It will be B. And tried and fell and wagged my nose. Toes, nose, they have the same sound, so I will write B. So our rhyme scheme will be A, B, B. Excellent. Okay, now the last part, as we said before, the sound devices. It will be alliteration, rhyme scheme, and the last one, repetition. From the word here, what's the meaning of repetition? It means the repetition of the words or phrases or the lines. For example here, and it always was night, night, night. It's called what? Repetition here. The word night repeated more than one time. Maybe we can find a word is repeated through the poem. So the word, if it's repeated throughout the poem itself, it will be repetition. Or maybe we can find a phrase is repeated also. Or an entire line is repeated. So we can find word repeated throughout the poem, or a phrase repeated all or throughout the poem, or an entire line is repeated throughout the poem. If you find this, it will be repetition. Okay? Now here we have a stanza, silver bells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. What can you see? This is called what, as we said before? A stanza. This is called what? A stanza. Why we call it a stanza? Because there are a group of lines. Here we have a group of lines. Okay? How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air night. What can you see here? Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. We call it what? Excellent, repetition. This is repetition in our stanza, and also the repetition gives a musical effect to the poem. And now, Junior 5, I want you to see what is the shape of the poem. What is the poem looks like? Okay, here, this is the shape of the poem here. As you see, this is called the title. This is called the title of our poem here. Here on the right you will find the name of the poet. As we said before, the poet, he is the one who writes the poems. Okay? And this is the shape of our poem. We have here, this is called, as we said before, a group of lines is called what? Excellent, a stanza. So here we have, this is the first stanza, the second stanza, the third stanza, and this is the fourth stanza. So how many stanzas here in our poem? 4 stanzas. Again, this is the shape of our poem. We call this is the title of our poem. Here, this is the poet, the one who writes the poem, and those are the stanzas. And this poem has, excellent, 4 stanzas. Okay, let's read here our questions. Okay, now, what is the first question here? What is the title for this poem? Do you remember our poem is called? Excellent, Day. So the first question I'm asking about the title, and the title is Day. Who is the poet? Do you remember? As we said before, who is the poet? Excellent. The poet is Thomas William Spring Rice. Okay. How many stanzas are there? Do you remember? We count our stanzas before. Excellent. There are 4 stanzas. Excellent. Okay, let's go back to our stanzas again. And he asking us to get out the rhyme scheme of the last stanza. Let's go back to our stanzas again to get out the rhyme scheme. Okay. This is the last stanza. I'm busy. Says the sun, sea, and rain, and air and sun. Here is a fellow teller one whose task will soon be done. Here, as we said before, we will write our rhyme scheme with the alphabetical order. And as I told you before, the first line always letter A. I'm busy, said the sun. So this will be letter A. Okay, sea and rain and air and sun. Sun, sun. They have the same sound. So I will here write A also. Okay, let's see the next line. Here is a fellow teller one. Sun, sun, one. They have the same sound. Sun, one. So it will be A. Whose task will soon be done? Done, one, sun, A. So our rhyme scheme will be A, 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 A. Okay, now let's go back to our questions again. As we said before, our rhyme scheme will be A, 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 A. Alliteration from the last stanza. Okay, let's go back to see the last stanza again. What is the alliteration in? Here, in the second line in our stanza, here we have sea and rain and air and sun. Here we have sea, sun. There's alliteration here between these two words, sea and sun. Both of them start with the same sound S, and as we said before, the alliteration gives the poem excellent and musical effect. Let's go back to get and answer the last question. Here, get out repetition. Do you remember the repetition that we have in our stanza? In line 1, we have the word sun, and in the next line, we have the word sun. Sun and sun here, this is called repetition. Let's go back to see. This is in our stanza. Here we have sun, sun. So between the words sun and sun here, we have repetition. I hope you understand everything in our video today. See you soon. And I want you to watch this video with us.
Going to start our poetry unit, and with this first poetry lesson, we're going to take a look at sound devices in poetry. So let's go ahead and get started. Sound devices create musical effects that appeal to the ear. So the use by the poet of these sound devices is what gives poetry that musical quality to it. It also, when the poet uses these sound devices, it also helps to create kind of the tone and the mood of the poem. It really helps add to it. So it's important that we can recognize and identify these, and also take a look at how each poet uses sound devices to add to the overall meaning and tone of the poem. First one we're going to look at is alliteration, which is my absolute favorite of the sound devices. And alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sounds, so beginning consonant sounds. For example, dangerous dogs dig ditches in Denver. Notice the repeated D sound at the beginning of a lot of these words. Dangerous, dogs, dig, ditches, and Denver all begin with the initial consonant D sound. So this is a perfect example of alliteration. Our second sound device is rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of end rhyme in a poem. And when we do rhyme scheme, we assign each rhyme a letter. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like. From Dr. Seuss. Rhyme scheme, we're just looking at the last word of the line. So last word of the first line is ham. That's always going to get an A for the first line. Last word of the second line is am. Well, am rhymes with ham, so it gets the same letter, A. Next line ends with the word boat. Well, boat doesn't rhyme with ham or am, so it needs a new letter, and we give it the next letter. We give it a B. Move on to the next line, last word, goat. Let's look above goat to see what word it rhymes with, if any. Well, goat rhymes with boat, and we gave boat line a B, so we're going to give that line a B too. Let's move on to the next last word of the line, house. Look above it to see if anything else rhymes with house that we've already had. Well, house doesn't rhyme with goat or boat, am or ham, so we have to give it the next letter, C. And then we look at mouse. Well, mouse rhymes with house, and house was a letter C, so now we're going to give mouse the letter C. And we just keep going through the poem in that way, looking above it to see if it rhymes with anything above it. If it does, give it a matching letter. If it doesn't, give it the next letter of the alphabet. Pretty straightforward.
And now, thank you for watching our video, Junior 5. Hope to see you soon. Bye.